Hey, everybody. Welcome to another How to Succeed podcast. This is the show that helps you get to the top and stay there. We're talking about how to succeed at surviving an economic recession. The following podcast is copyrighted by Sandler Systems, Inc. and protected by U.S. copyright laws. Sandler is the worldwide leader in sales, management, and customer service training. You can find more information at sandler.com. I'm your host, Mike Montague, Director of Community Engagement at Sandler, and I have a very special guest this week. He's been a Sandler veteran and Sandler trainer for 30 years. It's Gerry Weinberg from Detroit, and we're going to talk to him about how to succeed at surviving an economic recession. Gerry, welcome to the podcast. I can't believe it's been this long to get you on here.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here. We did a few in the past, but this was a special occasion. So
yeah, a special occasion. You celebrating 30 years as a Sandler trainer, but also I feel like this economic recession, that all that experience brings a unique voice to looking at it. Can you tell us a little bit about surviving a recession? I'm sure you've seen at least 3 or 4 in your time as a Sandler trainer.
Yeah, we've certainly, in running the franchise, we've certainly seen some economic downturns. Plus, we're in the automotive capital of the world, and so this is an area that's heavily dependent on the automotive production. Be that as it may, I actually see an economic downturn as a tremendous opportunity. So most people cut back during times like this that they say may be coming, and I say maybe because nobody really knows for sure. But certainly, 2008 and 9 were tough years. If we go back 9/11, we got through that, and then with the pandemic, people shut down, not working remotely, and some of them obviously are still working remotely. But our business actually thrived during downturns because we made it happen. I'm going to start off, I'm going to read a quote. And so I'm telling you up front, these are not my words, but I love them, and I don't even know where they came from, so I can't take credit. But here are the words, and I'm reading off a card here. It says, "You're not going to expense control your way out of a recession." So many companies, and it's really amazing, Steve, how many companies have actually cut back, laying off people, cutting out travel, cutting out sales, looking at it as an expense rather than an investment. So our belief is you don't cut travel, and you certainly don't cut training. And what we need to do is help our clients increase their sales volume, and without cutting prices. We certainly don't recommend that. But we have to learn how to outsell competition. So here's been my experience, during these economic downturns. Let's say that, and I'll be kind here, half of the business-to-business salespeople out there are mediocre. Okay, and I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that.
It's the other half, not the people listening to this show.
But typically what happens is those people kind of sit on the sidelines, sit in the corner, cover them up with a blanket, and just hope that they can ride this thing out. And this is a time to really take some initiative, to take some action, to be bold, and go out and outsell competition. So there are a few things that I certainly see are necessary right now. Number one, sales managers or VP sales, whatever their title is, they have to do a better job of coaching their salespeople, A, to be hunters, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and B, to call on ultimate decision makers. And typically, salespeople kind of shy away from decision makers, and they call on lower level people, or they're responding to an email or a phone call or an RFP or whatever, and they never really get to the decision maker. And right now, decision makers are, and I've always believed this, they're the easiest people to actually have a conversation with, because everybody avoids them. Everybody's afraid of them. You know, they're typically strong personalities. And so they're the people that will tell you exactly where you stand. The term pipeline management gets used a lot these days. Pipeline bloat. Salespeople spend an incredible amount of time chasing people they're never going to do business with. All right, and they're eager to, you know, put out quotes and proposals and you know, do demos and samples without knowing what's going to happen next. And that really fries me. And it's a waste of time, total waste of time. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I'm thinking here is I heard two things that I want to highlight already. Number one is you got to work smart, not harder in an economic recession. That we'll dive into a bunch of these, but you got to be calling on the right people. You can't be wasting your time, because your time and money gets more precious.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you're selling to people who can buy. There are businesses that will, like you said, shut down, shutter up, just try and survive. And they're not going to be the ones that are ideal clients for you. But there are also people, and this goes back to your other first attitude that I heard, that are buying on the way down. They're trying to capture market share.
Yep.
And so when this whole tide rises these ships back up, they're going to own a bigger piece of the pie from those people that were shuttered up and hiding. And so I think if we think about buying on the way down and buying at a discount and investing in our people when it matters, when it's at its lowest, when those get amplified on the way back up, that's going to pay a tremendous return. And all of that includes doing the right thing. So before we move on to some of those and the behaviors, are there any other attitudes? I'm thinking that when there's a lot of stress or pressure on hitting the numbers, and you know your annual quota hasn't changed just because the market has,
right,
how do you keep your head on straight? How do you think about investing in your team, your people, or your sales and the people in your pipeline during this type of downturn?
Well, a lot of companies really have done a poor job, Mike, of hiring the right people in sales to begin with. I mean, how many people actually raised their hand when they were coming out of high school and said, I'd like to be a salesperson? I mean, this is a profession, and that hasn't changed. And you've got a lot of salespeople who today lack the commitment and the drive and ambition to be the best that they can be. We've noticed a lot of this in the last year or so. Many of our clients, many of our customers have had to go out and have discussions with their customers about raising prices, because obviously raw materials have gone up, and I mean everything, the price of oil, everything has gone up. And somebody said to me recently that salespeople would rather go and get a root canal than have to talk to a customer about raising prices. And I mean, that's an attitude. And then you've got some people who've had a great year, not because they've done more business, but because their prices have gone up. And so, you know, they rode with it. Here's another factor right now that I'm encouraging everybody to take a look at. There are a lot of your competitors who are struggling right now. And this is a time to go after them, right? This is a killer sport. And not only that, some of these weaker customers, some of these weaker competitors have some salespeople that may be willing to jump ship. And this is a time that you can hire some of those stronger salespeople. Because I got to tell you something, strong salespeople want to be on a winning team. And if you're out there kicking butt, they want to come join you.
I think that's a great point. And I'll just kind of sum that up by saying, from my perspective, I think we see a lot of people who believe in the hype. So you get to choose whether you participate in this economic recession or not.
Exactly.
In almost every industry, there's a company or a salesperson who's having their best year ever.
Absolutely.
Who's crushing it. They're taking advantage of these opportunities. You can acquire competitors, or you can acquire their people and assets or clients. And so I think you get to choose as a leader or as an individual salesperson whether you participate and you believe that it's a recession, or you believe it's the greatest opportunity that's ever happened in your career and you're going to have a record year. Now, I want to move to behavior here and dive into it a little bit. If you chose to believe that, what are some of the things you need to do? We've highlighted a few already, but what does our behavior plan or actions look like during a recession?
David Sandler, who was my original mentor with the company, said to me, the day we stop prospecting is the day we're out of business. Prospecting never ends. It never ends. And every one of us is going to lose a customer for no reason of our own. I mean, they'll move, they'll merge, they'll die, they'll go out of business, whatever, acquired. And we have to constantly be looking to find new business. That's never going to end. So it takes a strong individual to be really good at prospecting. By most estimates, less than 10% of the B2B salespeople out there would be considered hunters. And we hear all the time, hey, Gerry, can you find me a good, or can you find me some hunters? And my response is, there are no unemployed hunters. Turn them loose. They don't want to be involved with account management. They just want to go and hunt. They want to sell. And turn them loose for commission. I mean, they want to make money, and they'll go out and bang on doors for you. And they have no fear calling on decision makers. That's how they're wired.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you mentioned it earlier and I wanted to dive into it. I think it's a key point that most lower level purchasing agents or front end users have been told, we're on a freeze, we're not investing in new equipment, we're not spending money. But those decision makers have other decisions to make. Where do I actually want to spend the money? They will invest in things that will make them a profit or help them through this difficult economic time. And so I think that conversation at the higher level is different. Could you explain why, or maybe how you start some of those conversations?
I love to learn about the history. So Harvard Business Review a while back went all the way back to the Big Depression, and they found that at the end of the Depression, there are some companies that actually went like this. I mean, they skyrocketed because they saw it as an opportunity, and others went down. I mean, and you've never heard of them again. Now you have to be prudent. I mean, you can't just go out and spend, but you look at it as an investment. I can recall during 2008 and 9, we invested in radio, and I had an arrangement with the 2 most expensive radio stations in town. I wrote the spots, I recorded them myself, and we invested additional funds during that time. And this wasn't barter. This was an investment on our part, and it paid off big time. I mean, I have people still remember the slogan, we're difficult and expensive and not for everyone. I mean, it's okay. But we got
Well,
results.
I think that's a good one there. Like the noise gets quieter during a
Yeah.
downturn, right? The direct mail pieces go down, the spots go down, the people willing to invest in it. And I think the people willing to ask and the salespeople willing to call or get to decision makers goes
Yeah,
down.
we had very strong results. And I remember specifically 2008 and 9. I mean, they were boom times for us. And everybody else sat in the corner and waited. So learning to outsell competition is key. And today everybody's got decent quality. I mean, if you go back a number of years, I mean, there were companies that produced crappy products. That's not the case today. Everybody's making good products, and there's not a lot of differentiation in product. So you've got to do it in your selling approach. And fortunately, with Sandler, we've got a good system, and it works. And if we can just teach people not to talk so much on sales calls.
Well, that's where I was going to go with you, because I think it's an interesting question. In my opinion, really what we teach in a economic downturn is not different than what we would teach in any other time. Good selling is listening, it's finding pain and solving their problems. People are probably in more pain than they have been at any other time. So selling and connecting with somebody emotionally should be easier. But do you think anything actually changes in your strategy, your tactics, your techniques during a recession? Is there anything that you highlight or anything that maybe you take away and you don't do as much?
It's how I'm wired. I can't speak for other people, but I'm wired to, one of my philosophies is there's no finish line. We just keep going. But that's me, and I can't expect other people to be like me. But that's what propels me forward. So,
are there any talk tracks or questions that you like to ask during a recession if you're talking with a decision maker or a leader?
Well, in many companies, the top people are surrounded by people who just want to tell them how good everything is because they're concerned about their jobs and everything else. So frequently, people ask me questions about, what's really going on outside. And what I like about interacting with decision makers is they're wired to be decisive. They're highly disciplined. They're results oriented. And I can relate to all of that. And we can have good business conversations. I don't look at sales as having a sales conversation. It's a business conversation, and we'll talk about their people, and we'll talk about everything that's going on. And fortunately, I've become I hate to use this term, but it's a trusted advisor, and so that really helps, moving forward.
Last question here. Anything that we missed? Anything you were hoping to share or advice from somebody that's been through recessions, or if people are just listening to this right now and they're still feeling stuck?
When this so-called downturn ends, and of course it always will end, where do you want to be? Okay, and what do you need to do to get there? And I'll go back to that quote at the beginning. You can't expense control your way out of a downturn. To me, it's an opportunity to move forward.
Love it. Keep going. It's always great advice. I love that famous quote, right? When going through hell, keep going. That's not the place to stop and set up camp.
Right.
So I want to get to know you a little bit better, Gerry. You've been on the podcast. You've been at Sandler for a long time, and we've gotten to work together for the last 12 years. But I'm interested to know, at this point in your career, how do you define success?
Good question. Certainly having a positive attitude, has helped me moving forward. I'm so blessed that my daughter Alana is in the business, and she's thriving. I mean, she is a true rock star. And I mean, I can remember when she first came in the business, you wouldn't recognize her back then. She's awesome. So that I feel great about that. That's success. But I've got 4 kids, and I'm proud of each and every one of them in their own way, because they've gone in different directions. And it's been great. I've had, a very supportive wife, and so she's allowed me to do what I want to do business wise, and it helps. And family life, thank goodness, is healthy. So
yeah, I think that's a great answer and a really cool spot to be on. We talked a little bit before we hit record, being in the legacy portion of your career and just getting to do the things that make you happy on a day-to-day basis is an amazing, success in my eyes. What about the biggest lesson learned or failure you had to get over in your career in order to be successful? Was there something that you really struggled with that you had to get over?
In my early career, I got fired. And I'll tell you what, that you learn from that. Part of the Sandler experience is you learn from failure. So my commitment to be successful really has always been there. So I learned I learned from that, and you learn not to make the same mistake over and over again.
Was there a specific mistake or something that you learned there?
Just in general, my will to succeed, my will to win. I'm very competitive. Sports has helped me in that regard. I hate to lose, which to me is worse than wanting to win. That's how I'm wired.
That's why I can't gamble. I can't go to a casino because I hate losing more than I like winning.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out for me. All right. Favorite Sandler rule, quote, or lesson that you've learned along the way?
My favorite Sandler rule, that's easy because I use it all the time. It's never do anything without knowing what's going to happen next. And I use that in lessons. You've got salespeople can't wait to do quotes and proposals and all that stuff. And I always ask, why are you doing it? Well, because they asked me for it. No. You got to know what's going to happen next. And we've got, I don't know how many rules today, a couple of hundred, but that's certainly my favorite. So.
Awesome. A new 52 just came out in our a new book. So we're excited about that as well. But it's time to wrap it up for everybody here. 3 quick ones based on how to succeed at surviving an economic recession. What's one attitude you'd like people to have?
Recognize that it's up to you. Don't be influenced by, what other people are telling you or what you read in the newspaper or watch TV. And sales is so awesome because you're in control of the outcome. I mean, obviously we can't control how many dollars we earn. We can't control how many sales we make. But the only thing we can control is our prospecting activity. And this is not a time to slack in that area. You got to really up the game.
Well, that might be your answer for question number 2 here, but is there one behavior or activity you would like people to do?
Yeah, well, certainly prospecting. I mean, that's the theme over and over again, and prospecting the right people. Yeah.
And finally, the best technique, tool, or hack to use.
To me, the key to growth is proactively getting introductions and referrals. And it's an area that salespeople traditionally avoid for whatever personal reasons. Either it's technical, they don't know what to say, what to ask, or it's conceptual. They're uncomfortable asking because they might get a no. But we love the word no. It's our second most favorite word. So yeah, absolutely. This is a prime time to get introductions and referrals.
I'm glad you mentioned referrals there, because that really clicked in my head that during an economic downturn, you as a decision maker, a business owner, might not be willing to take random calls from strangers and salespeople. But if your friend calls you up and says, hey, this person changed my business and fixed my problem, do you want that help too? You're going to take that call, right? That's the perfect time to get a warm introduction to somebody, and they're looking for somebody that they can trust to help them grow their business. So, I trust you, and you've always helped us grow our businesses, Gerry. So thank you for being on the show. Again, for more information on Sandler, you can go to Sandler.com, click on any of our free resources. You can find a local training center like Gerry in Detroit, or a enterprise team. If you have more than one location, reach out to them and they'll help you figure that out. As always, you can share this episode with somebody that you think needs to hear it. Leave us a review, hit subscribe if you haven't already. But thank you for listening. And remember, whatever you are, be a good one. The How to Succeed podcast is brought to you by Sandler. More information at Sandler.com.
The Sandler Summit returns in 2023. Each new event builds exponentially upon the energy and success of the prior year. The 2022 Sandler Summit event was a huge success for everyone who attended, so don't miss the next one. Buy your tickets to the Sandler Summit at sandler.com/summit.